Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Blk Powerhouse Podcast. I am so excited to be interviewing our guest today. We're just going to jump right into it. We have Cebo Campbell with us today, an
Yeah,
author, filmmaker, a brand builder, founder. The list goes on and on. Cebo, thank you so much for being here
of
today. And
course.
how are you feeling?
I feel, well, thank you one for having me and hello everybody. I feel great. I mean, this is it's a weird time to be alive, but I think it's in the weird times that we come alive. So I'm into it. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your time with me and our
Yeah, of course.
audience. Um, I'd like to actually start with your career. So let's go back to after graduation, after college, after you were done with football. What was that first job, and what was the process from that first job to becoming a writer and publishing books?
Yeah. Yeah, wow. So when I went to school and I did get the degree in creative writing and I thought I was going to be an author coming out. But I sold like a book to a publisher, like an indie publisher. It wasn't a lot of money, but I thought I was wealthy. I was like, I've made a bunch of money, I'm a writer. And I just didn't really know what I was doing. And so I ended up working a job. I was like, I want a job where I can just like write in the background kind of. And I ended up working at front desk of a hotel back in my hometown. So I had moved to San Diego and I moved back to my hometown and I'm working the front desk. I hate it. It's like, it's a job. It's one of those jobs where you're literally watching people go on vacation while you can't, right? And I'll check people in and I would just write. And my boss at the time, he came up to me and he said he was looking for a marketing person. And this is like 2005. And he's like, I need someone in marketing. And I was like, well, I can do marketing. I have no idea how to do marketing. I'm like, I can do it. He goes, well, I
Sign
need
me
someone
up.
that can
Let's
build a,
do it.
right, exactly. And he goes, I need someone that can build a website. And I was like, yeah, I can build a website. I'm not kidding. I didn't even own a computer. And so I like went and bought a really crappy laptop and I like pirated a copy of Photoshop from like some terrible website. And then I had a friend who just happened to know how to do a little bit of code. And I was like, yo, like, help me figure this out. And all he did was he showed me that you could, back then, he's like, you can export your design in Photoshop to Dreamweaver and then you can see the code. And I was like, okay. And I saw it and I was like, wait a minute. If I manipulate this code, it manipulates this design. And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay. But then like this is the story here. And then this is the visual representation here. And he's like, yeah. And it just clicked instantly. And I was like, oh, I see. This website isn't just this like weird sort of digital interface. It's a story platform, it's a canvas. And so I immediately was like, okay, I need to go shoot some photos. And I got like a little crappy digital camera and I shot new photos of the hotel photos. I was like, I want the website to be life in motion, not like cold, empty rooms. And so I started to shoot photos of this is people on the beach having a great time. And then I reimagined the website to be almost like a picture collage. And the hotel ended up making a banner year in terms of bookings because they didn't even have a digital booking platform. I had to build it.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to teach myself at that time, taught myself how to write. Initially, it was just HTML, CSS, but I needed to write programmatic code. So I taught myself how to write PHP, all while teaching myself how to design and trying to go. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is tell a story. And it was really successful. Like the website did incredibly well. And I got to redo a website every year and I ended up getting this marketing job. While I had this job, they were doing this like spring break trip for Canadians coming to the beach, and they were like, "Hey, we want to do a co-op website. Would you build it?" And I'm like, I literally just made all this up." And they're like, "Yeah, but it's great if you could build this co-op website. It needs to run advertisements for all the hotels, and then we'll get all the hotels to buy in, and we can make you a partner." And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, and I really didn't. Like, I didn't know anything about business then. But I did it and I ended up getting equity share in this little thing. It wasn't much. And I built it out And what ended up happening is it worked really well, and all the hotels wanted to run the ads on it. But then they were like, "Can you build our website?" After I would run their ads, and it ended up being such an influx of people who wanted websites. I was making more money than I knew what to do with. And it wasn't like millions, but it was more money than I could run taxes on. And I
Mhm.
was like, I have to start a business. And I didn't know how to start a business at all. And I just like researched literally, how do I get a business license in Florida? And I went to like sunbiz.org or something, and I ended up getting my first business license and my first EIN number and all of that. And I was like an employee of my own company. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing.
Yep.
And I started that. And ever since then, I've been opening businesses all on the same premise of trying to tell a story. And I knew that after a while, I would eventually go back to writing books. And I was learning, I was writing in the background all along. And I don't mind, which I think is an important thing. I don't mind writing and failing. Like I don't,
Mm.
it's all right. It's just like everything else. It's like it's just practice. And so I have whole novels that I've written and I'm like, that doesn't work. And I'll just go to the next one, you know? And so I was writing in the background, building this business. I ended up sort of moving from the business I ran to being a creative director for another agency, this agency called Misfit, and we traveled all over the world doing humanitarian work. And it was amazing. And while I was doing that, a friend was doing his startup, and he came to me basically the same offer. He's like, "Hey, would you want to help me build this?" He's like, "I don't really know what I'm doing, but I got clients and I want to service all of them." He's like, "Come help me." And so I co-founded an agency called Spherical, and I've been the co-founder for Spherical for 10 years ish. And we've done, I mean, the biggest hotels in the world. We've named hotels, we've interior design concepts, branding, website, social, the whole gambit of digital persona. And, um, and I did that for 10 years. And then at the end of it, I was like, okay, now it's time to write my book. And then I wrote Sky. And, um, and ever since I've written Sky, everything shifted. And I was like, oh, okay, I see where I'm supposed to be in the world. I see where I'm supposed to make impact. And I've now shifted gears to open a new agency called Another. And that one is like, I think, to be the culmination of all the work of my life sort of folding in.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many things to unpack there. One, which is like the ignorant side of my brain, thanks to when you were working front side or the front desk at the hotel. Have you ever seen
Mm,
Rap Ish by Issa Rae
mm-mm.
on
No,
A?
no, no, no.
So it was her second
Mm-mm.
show she did after Insecure, and it's about these two girls from Florida who teamed together and they're trying to break into the music industry. But one of them is working the front desk at the hotel. And one of the opening lines in that show is, "I'm literally coming to work every day to see people live their best lives, and I'm not living mine." And that was
That's
like
it.
the point. So as you were talking about that, that's really the story. It reminded me of that show, and
That's funny.
yeah, really great fun show. But so many things that I want to tap into. One, I want to talk about your independent publishing experience, and then I want to get into what brand building taught you. But selfishly, as an independent publisher, would love to learn what that process was for you working with an indie publisher. What were some of the lessons learned, and the biggest
Hmm.
difference than going and working with
Yeah.
one big five?
The biggest back then it was different. So back then the marketing platforms were so limited, you know, and I'm still working with indies and I love the evolution. So back then they were like it was all of it was based on the premise that an author just wanted to have a book out. And and if they could even get it in a store at all, it was like, oh, you've won the day. But
Yeah.
there was no the power of marketing relative to the writer's career versus the writer's book was a disconnect back
Mm,
then. And I remember being like confused because I was like, but it isn't, the book doesn't just come out. It lives, doesn't it like live forever? Is that not what we're doing? And so if all of the energy is put into the book's like launch, how does that translate into sales? And for a lot of the independent publishers and frankly, the big five to some degree, they were like, well, we don't have the resources to think in those terms. So what we're going to do is help you get this book out in the world and then you do all of it.
Mhm.
And that had never been said to that doesn't isn't said to authors up until it's out. And you're like, wait, we could have strategized the whole but like if I know that that was the plan, like we could have attacked this through strategy first, opposed to just trying to create a piece of art and put it in the world. It's the equivalent of a painter going to a gallery, a gallerist, and the gallerist not thinking about like frames, not thinking about positioning, not thinking about, what time of day the event is, like not thinking about those things and strategizing them relative to the body of work. And so it was interesting. And so when I that experience, while it wasn't the first time I worked with an independent publisher, it wasn't great. It was fine, but it wasn't great. I learned enough that when I got to the big five, I sort of was like, okay, let me
Mm,
see how you operate. And they operate like they're a big machine and they've got a lot of things that have worked for a lot of writers, but that doesn't mean it works for every writer. And
exactly.
so it's like going to school where the teachers are like, they're teaching you the same thing, but they're not identifying your skills as an individual.
Mhm.
And so when I got there, at Simon Schuster, I love Simon Schuster. I love everyone there. They've just been wonderful. They allowed me space early to go, hey, I have thoughts and I get it. Like you got a plan. I know you're gonna do your publicity, you do all that, but I know that the book that I'm writing is going to be, if not confrontational, it's going to inspire conversation. And we need to preempt that conversation by getting it to the right people first. And
Mhm.
they at first they didn't know what I meant. And I was like, I need to get it to black people. And specifically,
That's
I
very
need to get right. I need my folks to be here upon
Mhm.
arrival because I know that they'll protect the message. If you
Mm,
send it out and it just goes to New York Times and they're the herald of the message, it's going to fall flat because I'm not considering black people first. And in this book, I have to consider them first. And
mhm.
they allowed me room to strategize early. Now, having known that, and now like going back to the indie world, um, I'm now seeing that the platforms have evolved so much that when you employ strategy early, it could yield enormous results. It can yield, and not just enormous results in terms of sales, in terms of authors the overall identity and their ability to keep writing,
Mm,
to keep publishing, and to see if their message is resonating in the places and some have some sort of measurable determination of whether that message is actually resonating. And
mhm.
so it's been interesting. For context, when I say I'm going back to indie, I'm not going back to indie, but I'm interested in working with indies again, is because I think with like a movie, you have or feature film and it goes out in all the theaters and it's like a big giant release and there's a whole bunch of money and there's red carpets and there's Denzel's, all the stuff, right? But then you also have TV shows that come out on Netflix that are equally popular and they require something very different. And so I think there are two tracks that a writer can have. And I do want writers to know this is that they're managing a career. They're not managing a book. The book is a product of that career
Mm,
and that you have to strategize where you want to be. If you're going to go indie, know that indie is designed to function similarly, where it's like the distribution is different, the framework for a publication is different, but you're going to be closer to the people. And the big five is like big and hulking and giant, and if it throws that big rock, it might make a splash, but it also might miss entirely, and you don't have any control over it. And
yeah.
so you have to think of yourself as a business, as a writer. And I think my experience with indie taught me how to do that a little bit better.
Yeah. No, I'm so in hindsight, I feel like it's so great that you had that experience working with the indie before because to your point, so many authors don't know that. They think that they're going to
Yeah.
come in and that this book is going to live forever. And publishers are like, we only care about this first year. And then your book is a backlist.
Mhm.
And then it's like, we're focusing on the next front list. And I
Yeah.
remember coming into publishing, I would like, our PR team would pitch booksellers and pitch all these different people, and they're like, "Oh, it's backlist. It came out a year ago." And I'm like, "But it's a great book still." Like, why after the year mark,
It
people are
didn't
like
stop being a good one.
yeah, like, I don't understand that. So I'm glad that you knew that going into it, and you were able to build momentum and marketing around
Mhm.
that. Um, So let's back into your experience with brand building. What did you learn in brand building that you were then able to take and apply to your career as a writer and as, like you said, an entrepreneur, business person, because that's really what authors are, which I think is a huge disconnect. I think people just want to stick to
Mhm.
the writing, not knowing that there's a business side that calls you to level up to that. And if you don't
Yeah.
rise up to that occasion, then you really miss the mark with how far your book can go.
You missed the mark with the possible propulsion of the book, but you also put yourself in a position to be exploited if you're not doing that. And that you just have to be in more control. I branding was like my is my love language, right? Like I love the idea that every touch point that a person has with something, it can make them feel something. And frankly, when I work with a lot of branding companies, and we are a branding company, because we interchange. I'll have a team that does the logo, and I have the team that does positioning and naming, and they all have this like belief that they are branding. Like when they make the logo, that's branding, or they make like the colors are. I'm like, none of that is the brand. Branding is entirely immaterial. It
Mm,
doesn't have any material. It's the idea. It's the story that we exchange with each other. It's the sensation, and if you're not living in the sensation, then your brand is not going to connect on the human level. It's going to connect on the consumer level, which will make it um transactional in nature, but it won't make you an advocate of it, which is what you want people to be. You want people to champion, be like, I love this brand, because they can connect to it. And so I working with hotels is fascinating, because I think hotels is like a convergence point of a lot of things. So you're going to get interior design, you're going to get spatial design, you're going to get smell programs and art stories, and hospitality and F&B, all of it. And like people traveling from with their styles coming from all these different, all of it happening in one space. And so I'll give you an example. I had one client who came to me, and they were trying to figure out how to position their brand. I will not name names, or they're a good, really big company. And they're like, well, what we want to be able to increase our ADR price point, roughly $10 to $15 per night. How do we do it? And I'm looking at them, and I was like, well, I always do the same thing, where I go stay at the hotel and experience it like a guest. And I walk in like to the lobby. Lobby's beautiful. It's sparse, but it's nice. It is intentionally, I think, minimal, but it also is a little bit hollow, but it's nice. I go down the hallway. Hallway's nice. Get my little key card, which key cards are, there's so many cool things you do with key card, not just making a key card, but I
mm,
get to the room, and the way the room is situated is that you walk in, and it's like a long kind of bar, and you can see like the living area and the window, but actually on the corner of the bar is a coffee maker, and it's a Mr. Coffee maker. And I said, this is why you can't do it. And they're like, what do you mean, coffee maker? And I'm like, if I've paid you $5,000 to stay here, one, I'm betting on you. So you can't physically experience a hotel until you've already paid for it and you've traveled to it. It's not like a car you could test drive.
mhm,
And you wouldn't spend $5,000 on anything else that you can't at least try on first, right? But you spend that $5,000 entirely based off a digital story. And because I built your website, I've told them a really great digital story, but they arrive expecting the brand that you sold them, and the first thing they see is a Mr. Coffee maker, which is not aligned with your brand. You've made a significant brand error, because that's the first thing they see when they walk into the room. That's the first thing. If you're not identifying those touch points, the immateriality of your brand isn't flowing through, and you have to evaluate those touch points. And so I apply that to me as a human with the develop. I'm not saying that to be that manipulative, but I mean that in like the most authentic way. I know who I am, and so I'm like, I'm not trying to like be different for different people. And so I'm a brand. We all are our brand, and our brand has to at every touch point be us. And so
mhm,
it's not about, faking for those certain folks. It's not about dressing to impress. It's about like exuding a sense of self. And that makes, which is my primary marketing philosophy, it makes magnetism. It draws people to you. Doesn't mean that you have to constantly be throwing yourself in front of people. They're drawn to the energy that you create by being who you are. And a brand has to do the same thing. A brand has to arrive to a sense of self that feels human and make sure that that sense of self is at every touch point, and be constantly evaluating that to those touch points. And it's really simple. It's like if I had a party at my house and you came and there's a whole bunch of people. Now you never met me, you don't know who I am, but you're in my house and you're like, wow, the book's on the shelf. He's well traveled, or like these trinkets. I've seen these masks. These are, Nkisi masks. And, oh, is that Laurence Fishburne over there in the corner? He knows that person. And all of a sudden you start to understand who I am
Yeah.
without me being in the room. That's how a brand should work.
Yeah.
That you feel it. And too often that it's just trying to mimic something that exists already. And that's all right, but it should eventually arrive to a sense of self
Mhm.
as an entity.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, and I think that the examples that you gave are really great examples as far as how people can show up as themselves at every touch point. And I think that point
Yeah.
is so potent at every touch point for authors or for brands or for publishers, booksellers, whomever. Your brand has to speak through. I even think to as simple as my girl Bria Baker, when she went on her book tour, she
Mm.
wore green that whole time. Like it's
Not
something
messing
as
around.
you know what
Bria
I mean?
don't mess around.
He does not, and so I think that, like, as authors, like, it can be simple things like that that have
Yes.
your audience and your readers be able to resonate with who you are, your book, and the message that you share, so I love that you talked about that. Let's move into your rights and your movie that's coming up. So you recently, sold rights to, Laurence Fishburne, and talk to me about how this came about. Was it your, literary agent? Did you have a separate TV and film agent that took care of this?
Hmm.
What was that?
Yeah. So, man, I've seen this happen in my life where I'm like, I can't believe this is real. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's wild. It's wild. Um, so I'm with the UTA, United Talent Agency. I'm with the literary arm of UTA, and the literary arm mostly does like celebrity books. Like they did the same month as mine. They did like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Like they do celebrities. And I'm one of a few fiction writers that they have. I love UTA. They're great. And when I published the book, they also have film TV rights. They all have like they agent the actors, they agent directors. And so they were like, we already have a film TV rights agent for you and you can't wait. And I'm like, great. And so I didn't have to do anything to get the film TV rights agent. And
Good.
what they did is they just built a package for the book. And well, the initial package doesn't include it just sells the IP, and they like made their list of people that they thought would love to read it and to potentially buy the rights, and they sent it out. And what was fascinating is I could see exactly how it scared people and excited them based on their responses,
You're
it was
on
like right at the line. Say it
sorry, I was
again.
just gonna say, you're on all of these email threads when they're sending it out to
Oh
folks
yeah, yeah,
like okay,
yeah,
good. So you're really hands-on in
yeah.
this.
Very much. Like I said, it's a business, and so I'm interested in learning it, right? Like just being in the room, and so I there were a few people that came back. Some production companies I really was interested in working with, and they were trying to figure out calls and stuff. And then I ended up having two calls back to back. One of them was with David Oyelowo, who's great, and obviously David is remarkable. And then it was with Lawrence. And when I met David, it was me, David, and insanely talented Oscar nominated director, Misan Harriman. And I know Misan, so we're like chopping it up. It's all great. But David was like, he's like, this type of movie, it's very difficult to make. It's very difficult to make. We're gonna have to do this, have to do this. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that is difficult, but let's figure out how we can actually accomplish it. when I got on with Lawrence, I didn't like Lawrence wasn't on the invite. It was just his manager, Helen, who's incredible, and JP, who's also incredible. And JP runs Atlantic Crossing Films. And I get on, and it's just me. So it's not my agent, it's no one else, just me. And I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? And then Helen goes, just a second, Laurence is coming. And at first I was like, Laurence who? And she's like, who? Laurence Fishburne. And then, I'm a huge Laurence Fishburne fan. Like, who didn't watch like Higher Learning and Deep Cover and like
Yeah.
he's a legend. He comes on the screen, and this is what he does. He just looks at me and he goes, Cebo? Cebo! It screams it like freaking Morpheus. And then I was just like, oh my God. And it was so profound. I normally would screenshot it, and I was so shocked that I didn't screenshot anything on the call. I was just, and it differently than David, who was approaching it purely from the business perspective. Laurence was like, he's like, this is a story that has to be told. He's like, these characters that you developed, creating this world, the challenge of it. He's like, we have to make it. And he goes, I want to make this. And
Mm,
I love the energy. And as like, I talk about like human connection, that is ultimately what I want to exchange whenever I'm exchanging art. It's not transactional, it's connected. And so I was like, I love his energy. And there were other calls that they had lined up, but I was just like, how can I say no? What?
how do
This is
you
Laurence Fishburne.
Yeah, how do you go from a call
Right.
Laurence Fishburne into, yeah, we gotta still shop this around to other people? Like, my mind,
No, I was like,
especially being on the call the way that he did. Yeah.
yes. I was like, done. And so, and he is so sweet. It was funny because I'm around people. My wife is an actress. I'm around people in the business, in the film industry, and the film industry, which is different than the book industry. Book industry, everyone tells you no until you get a yes. In the film industry, everyone says yes, but they don't actually mean it, right? Like there's no real. They're just like yeah, 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 but they don't actually. And so he was on the call. He was like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to be in London, and so let's get together. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I kid you not. He texted me and he was like, hey, I just landed. Come on over. And invites me to this insane rooftop, like beautiful in like Kensington, is gorgeous. And him and JP both, and they like want to take photos so they could do the announcement. They talk about packaging. And then he's like, we're gonna. I've only said this to one other person, so it's relatively like it's. I don't even know if I can say it, so I'm just gonna say it. But he's like, we're gonna package it up, and package it up means in order to sell it to a production company, we need to have enough stuff. We need to have the actors on board. We need to have a director on board. We would love to have a screenplay. So when you walk into the room, you're not pitching an idea, you're showing them how they're going to make their money back.
Right.
Because if Lawrence is in it and they put in $5 million, they're going to make 10 just because it's Lawrence, because people are
Yeah.
going to go see it. And so they're like building the package, and he's like writing names down that are so famous that I'm like, you know these people? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'll just call him. And one of them, he goes, we're going through the characters, and he's like, he goes, I'm gonna play the king. And he's like, I think for
Mhm.
Charlie, maybe we can get Jeffrey right. I want to get Jeffrey. And he just writes Jeffrey's name. And then he's like, who should play Vivian? And then he goes, it's gotta be Angie. And I'm like, who was Angie? And he goes, Angie, Angela Bassett. And I'm kind of like, okay, if that's what we're doing, all
Let's
right, sure. And he's like, get Ike and Tina back together. And I'm just like, all right. And so we like hang out all day, and he takes me to his apartment that he was like living in because he's filming The Witcher. He like shows me his apartment. We like hang out for a bit, and then I go home, and he calls me that night and he goes, hey, I've got tickets to Cabaret. It's Billy Porter's Cabaret. Do
mm,
you and your wife want to come? And I'm like, yeah. So the next night we go down to London, central London. We're walking in with Lawrence. So it's like, you're not in a line. You're just, the cocktails are brought to you. So it's a
yep.
very different experience. And go in, we're at the bar having drinks, and he taps, or we actually go and see the first half of the show. And the intermission, we come back out, and he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, are you ready? And I'm looking at him, I'm like, I don't know what do I need to be? I feel like I'm ready, but I don't know what you're about to do. And he goes, just stay right here. I'll be right back. And he walks away and he comes back and he taps me again. He goes, you sure you're ready? And I just shrug. He moves and Angela Bassett is standing right in front of me. And I was like,
Whoa.
what? And he's like, we're packaging. And she just hugs me and she goes, I can't wait. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is insane. It's insane. And so we ended and you know, the movie isn't sold fully. So it's not like they're building the package before it's sold. And the
Right.
package is this like it's the same strategy you would apply in a book where you're like, how do I organize this in such a way that when
Mhm.
it's delivered, it's gonna hit. It's
Yeah.
gonna hit. And
Yeah.
he's doing all of that strategy. And thankfully he's been so kind and so warm. He's allowed me to be involved in it entirely. And so I'm writing the screenplay, which I'm excited to do, and I've loved writing
Oh, yeah.
screenplays. And I thankfully also have Lena is a good friend of mine, Lena Waite, and she's able to help me like reading, helping sort of get coverage on the script. And so, and Lawrence is very much like, yeah, write something, send it to me, we'll iterate, we'll get it right.
Mm.
And then I know I'm talking a lot, but
No,
this
this
was
is
an
great.
example of how awesome it has been. He went to a do you know Kerry James Marshall?
No.
He's like one of the greatest black painters ever in the history of the world. He's extraordinary. He's like 70 something years old. His work is you've seen his work before. He has this one famous piece called The Invisible Man. And it's like this really dark character with like just his white eyes and his white teeth, but he's
Mhm.
known for inventing shades of black color. That's his thing. He can paint a room that looks dark, like the lights off, and because he has different shades of black, you can still see the painting. So it's
Oh,
great. Lawrence goes to dinner to honor Carrie in London, and while he's at dinner, they're looking at Carrie's work, and it's extraordinary. And they're opening this exhibit, this 70 plus piece exhibit at the Royal Arts Academy. And Lawrence had dinner with him and goes, I'm doing this movie with my friend Cebo. He needs to see this. Can he come? And they're like, yeah, we'll give Cebo a private show. And I was like, what? And he calls me, and he's like, come on, come on. And I go down and literally the whole Royal Arts Academy is shut down. And it's just me, Lawrence, and Joe West, his lawyer. And we're just walking around and they're like giving us a tour of all the pieces. And
wow.
he's like, artistically, can we find frames of this and bring it into the film? Can we find these? Can we connect? Because what Carrie does beautifully is he can create what feels like a blackness you've never imagined and still be familiar. And
Mm.
he's like, this is where we want to be. And so he's doing this creatively. He's doing it strategically. He's doing it as a mentor. He's doing all these things all at once. And I go, that's the type of person you want to be working with. And
Yeah.
so that's why I call him Unc. I call him Uncle Fish because he's like, that's what it feels like. And
Mhm.
he's been great. And it was the right choice to work with him on this because I'm learning so much about the business through how open he is and how kind he's been.
And what a blessing in itself to be able to work with someone who can really act as a mentor and help hold
Yeah.
your to walk into these rooms and to learn these things firsthand. Because a lot of times you hear
Yeah.
people sell their rights and that's it. And then they just like show up to the premiere. Maybe they write the screenplay, maybe they don't. Like maybe they get a final look at it, maybe they don't. And so it seems like you really have the best outcome, which is to not only have an incredible mentor, but to also
Mm,
be hands-on in the business and to learn the business. And I just can't wait to see what this next novel is. Now having all of this experience and knowledge.
mm.
I'm excited. Thank you for sharing that with us
Yeah,
here. I
yeah.
feel so honored. So I want to kind of move now talking about bringing you talk about bringing these frames to life and how you can include them and the film. Let's switch gears and talk about We Adapt. You're bringing Sky Full of Elephants immersive in New York. You're also partnering with Blacklist to be able to bring this together. So, how did this partnership form? And tell me more about the event and how it came about.
Um, I've really liked the idea of um, storytelling across a lot of platforms. This is what I've been doing my whole career is like, how do we tell this story everywhere? How does every touch point feel special? And but at the same time connect it to a source. And I kind of always wanted to do something like this. But as the book came out, a gentleman, interestingly enough, named Charlie Palmer, he he did a painting and he tagged me in it, and I go look at it, and it's him doing the story. And he's like, I read this book with Sky for Love, and it inspired me. And I did this painting, and it was a glorious painting. I was like, what in the world? And I'm immediately was like, I want to put a show on with this guy. And I thought,
Mhm.
what I'm actually doing is I'm adapting the novel. And I started to sort of study adaptation just in general. And I already knew Franklin at the Blacklist, I already knew Randy. They're both friends. And so I reach out to Franklin and I'm like, hey, I want to understand the adaptation because it seems like that when someone sells rights for like a book, story, podcast, whatever it is, it seems to all be angling towards the biggest version of adaptation, which is like, I want a TV show, I want a film.
Mhm.
But there's so much money and investment and time that has to happen to make that the case. It's like winning the Super Bowl. But there's a lot of things that can happen in between. And even then he was like, but what do you mean in between? I'm like, well, if I write a book and I turn it into a dinner, is that not adaptation? Right? If I invite the right people into the room to have that dinner and they can go out and talk about the book, are they not having an adaptive experience? And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And I was like, okay, well then there are other ways to adapt a book. You can do a short film. You could do a painting. You could do photography. You could do all this stuff. Why don't
Mhm.
we do that and let that be doorways for people to access the novel before it becomes fully adapted into a film? And the idea is really simple. A novel is big. It's 10 hours of time invested sitting and reading.
Mhm.
And that's a lot for a lot of some people. And I don't, while I am a person who reads a lot and I love reading, and I also am not going to be dismissive of how people's attention spans are being affected on purpose.
Mhm.
If you dismiss it, then you're missing an opportunity. And so I go meet them where they are and invite them through the door. And that is to say, take your book, make an interesting piece of social media content that feels like an adaptation, not an ad, an adaptation, and
Mm.
invite them into your story. Make a piece of art, make something else that invites them in. And
Mhm.
so I was thinking through this, and I want to say I was actually with Randy. I definitely was with Randy, and we were in DC, I think, and I was like, "Yo, I think I want to do like, what if I can get like a couple of painters, maybe get a photographer, and have them like do like a gallery experience. You know what? Actually, let's do food too. Let's do drinks and cocktails. Let's make a whole adaptive experience." And he was looking at me the whole time like, "Bro, you tripping?" He's like, "Writers don't do that. Like, I don't know what you're doing." And I'm like, "But they should. Let's do it." And so I made this whole deck and I was like, if I do this, like you guys will partner with me, right? Like I don't know anybody. So give me your guest list. Like I don't know people like that. And they're like, if you do it, we got you. And so this is what happened, Leah. And it's an important part of this conversation. I put together the whole pitch for this. And at this point, I had Charlie, I had Fahamu, who had painted some stuff. I've got two photographers. I've got a Haitian vegan restaurant ready to do the food. I got all this stuff. And
Love.
I pitch it to Simon Schuster. And I go, listen, this is going to budget around about 10 to 15K to do this event, depending on, because I was going to do it initially in DC. I was like, I'm trying to get some sponsors. Would you help? And they're like, we don't have any money. It's like, you have none? I was like, the paperback is coming out. You got nothing? They're like, nope. I go around to everybody I know and no one will give me any money.
Were
And I
you seeking
realized something
strictly publishing sponsorships and, like, book-related folks?
everywhere. I
Okay.
was like Apple, liquor
Mm.
companies,
Yeah.
everybody I can interact with. And I was like, yo, I'm going to do this thing. And it's the amount of people that are going to be in this room are the people you want to be connected to.
Yeah.
Nothing. No, not a cent. And I end up talking to Lena about it. And I was like, Lena is coming to do the Q&A.
Mhm.
And, as you know, and I'm like, I was like, no one's paying, no one's giving me money to do this. And she goes, we have to invest in ourselves. And she
Mm.
told me this. She goes, Legacy Talk series that she does, which is incredible. She's
Yeah.
like, "I paid for the whole thing out of pocket." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "There's so many times that I can go into a room and I can pitch something, and you know, it works sometimes, but most of the time, no one's giving me stuff for my own ideas like that."
Mhm.
And so she's like, "We have to invest in ourselves and let it draw in the things that you need, because it's not necessarily just about a monetary exchange."
Mm.
When you imagine this people, because this now it's sold out, the event, it's 160 people RSVP to this thing. It's all sorts of across all different, I mean, it's artists, it's writers, it's agents, it's producers, it's all sorts of people. I go, I want to know all these folks. I want them to know that we can all make stuff together. I want them to
Yeah.
feel like they got access to every discipline in this room if they want to go make something. It isn't about a monetary exchange, and I'll pay for that. I'll pay for that because when they leave, the story that they will tell, which is a part
Mhm.
of that branding, is the
Mm.
story of how we can make something out of nothing, how we can take something and adapt it in multitudes. That's our secret sauce, and that's our superpower, is that we can create. And they will feel that, and they will attach that to me as a brand, and as well as the company that I'm building another.
Mhm.
And so when the doors close on this event, I will have made something that is far more valuable than money, and that's
Mhm.
connection. And
Yeah.
so I built the whole thing. I architected the event, and it's 9 different artists all given a section of the book to adapt that section. And then as you experience the night, you actually relive the whole book through different expressions of art. And
I
I've
love
got
that.
a dancer, I've got a violinist, I've got a singer, I've got a filmmaker, I've got photographer, I've got painters. I mean, it's gonna be chaos, but it'll be good chaos, hopefully. Um, but I even got a guy who just drums, just hits the drum just to be like
Mm.
orient people to where they're supposed to be. It
Mhm.
ended up being in Tribeca in a 2-story gallery. And
Mm.
so it's gonna be a really um, you know, it'll feel sophisticated, but it'll still feel us, which is I think who I am as a brand. Um and I hope that when people feel it, they understand that we are, as writers, we are as creators, we are as makers, are also business people, and that we can do both and do both honorably, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
so
I love that. I'm so conversation earlier around every touch point and everything. When we think adaptation, it does not have to just be on the screen, but there are so many different ways that you can bring your book to life. And I hope that this serves as an example for other authors to figure out what their different versions of adaptation look like for them. That doesn't have to just
yeah,
be limited to the screen. And I can even see this like going on tour and like other people in other cities wanting to do it and then pulling artists from different places. So I'm really excited for you. I think that it's a brilliant idea, and I'm so glad that you were like, "I don't
no,
care if nobody has done this before, we're gonna do it," because that's where I mean, it's real innovation. That's where change happens. So,
no,
you
I appreciate that.
you mentioned another, and I know we're kind of closing out
Mhm.
here, but we have to tap into that.
Yeah, let's
So,
get into it.
another conjure stories across mediums. So we're talking books, films, gatherings, brand campaigns. Talk to me about how this came about and why do you feel like now is the time to launch this brand?
Honestly, I've had this brand in the back of my mind for a very long time because um, I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound weird, but we're just gonna rock with it. So in the right after the pandemic, right after George Floyd, when everyone was like, you know, Black Lives Matter, we want black owned businesses, and we're all for it. Like we're like, yeah, let's do it, let's do it. What I experienced was that because it's a black owned experience, a black owned place, doesn't mean that it's being taught how to be a high end or sophisticated or a rich experience. It's just
Mhm.
black owned. And so it end up crashing because you go into a restaurant that's black owned, but they don't know how to do service. And so I'm like, how, we got to elevate. Like this isn't just about, that's the baseline to, and we can't think in terms of baseline. We have to project out and learn. And so I was going around different places, and I'm like, I just don't feel the elevation. And
Mm.
And I was like, well, I guess like I can elevate some shit. Let me step in. Let me put my hat in the ring. And I was imagining, well, okay, I don't want to just make another creative agency. Everybody has creative agencies. I don't want to just make another like IP company. The people have IP companies. I want to make something that is resonant. And I kept saying, I don't want to make another. I don't want to make another. And I was like, another, because we are constantly being othered. That when we get together and actually elevate, we'll make something completely different and separate it in hours. And I started to go, okay, but what is that? And I knew I loved working in the creative storytelling space. I knew I loved working in the connective space, the collecting people and curating people and places. And I knew I loved working in physical spaces. So what another is it's an agency in three parts. It is a creative and IP development firm that will take IP and use the creative agency side to expand IP and make all of those interesting touch points and do the packaging so that it can ultimately be adapted. So the same packaging that I'm running from Laurence, the same stuff that's happening and we adapt, this agency will be able to do that for any book,
Mm-hmm.
any idea. It will also be a collective of another spaces. And that is all of the amazing Black businesses that are really elevated, that it isn't just that it's Black owned. It's like staple stuff. When I
Mm-hmm.
go to Rep Club in LA, I feel it. When I go to Aunts and Uncles, I feel it. When I'm in Brixton, I feel like there are places that I go. Like if you travel to London and you're going, where should I be? Where the folks at? You want to know. And so I'm like, this collective, it'll function similarly to hotel brands where you go, like there's a hotel brand called Design Hotels, another one called Preferred Hotels. And all they're doing is create a brand and they say this preferred design hotels are the best design hotels in the world. And then they get the best design hotels in the world and they go, you guys are now a design hotel. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
do anything, but you're a design hotel. Keep doing what you're doing. And when people want to book a design hotel, they'll find you. Another will do the same thing for these amazing spaces for all of us. So no matter where you are in the world, you'll find a spot that's another spot that you know you're going to feel safe, you're going to feel welcome, you're going to feel us.
Mm-hmm.
And then another will be its own members club. And it will be a Black owned members club in London with a creative outpost in Ghana. And so you'll have connection to the continent through the space. And it'll be a proper members club, F&B, food and beverage. It'll have movie theaters in it. It'll have listening rooms. It'll have a library. It'll be a proper, really, really rich and Afrofuturistic members club. But I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a place where people just go to hang out, but actually it's a segue to the continent. It's a place for you to now get back to home. And I knew I needed to do that. I did my DNA test recently and I learned that my family came from Cameroon. And I didn't know it. Like no one in my whole family knows that. No, I told my mom, she was like, okay. She's like, I don't even know what Cameroon is. And I'm like, we have to reconnect. We
Yeah.
have to reconnect. And so Americans will be able to come to London and have the members club. They'll have another spaces all over. And
Mm.
through those spaces, they can have access to the continent. And so it's stories, it's spaces, and it's a collective all at once.
I love that, and I think it's so smart even now seeing all the movements that you've been able to make with this immersive experience. It's all lining up to really launch this brand, and it makes
Hmm.
perfect sense. I'm curious though how you want to go about the IP side of the business. Is this
Hmm.
just mostly working with authors who have published books and then adapting their books into different mediums and forms, or is it acquiring the IP yourself and kind of maybe going more indie where you're collecting it?
I'm still in debate about this. And I was talking to my business partner. We went to dinner last night and my own IP alone is like I have Sky, which we will position the company to be EP on Sky. We'll also
Mm,
write,
smart.
obviously, and it'll come through another. But then I just my new book, Wells Without Water,
Hmm.
we are already building the package for. So we know it's we do the strategy to go, what will this become? Will it become a TV show? Will it become a film? What will it become? And then once we identify how it will work best, we've already mapped out all 8 episodes of the first season or the limited series of what this book will be. We're already working on the packaging. We're already working on like a film sizzle and a trailer for the book simultaneously. And so materials that give people access to the story long before it ever comes out. I'm even doing which I've never seen them do. I'm doing a social media press tour for the book. So it's like just
Mhm.
social media, Black social media influencers before the book comes out, and like
Yep.
actually treating them with the respect that you would give press. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, they're doing the talking, but the press is doing the listening. And
Mhm.
so I'm like all these things to elevate the IP. So when it's time to walk into a room, you have all the materiality of the narrative. You've got an audience already in place. You've got packaged actors who've already signed on and go, yep, we're into this when you walk in to pitch it. And
Mhm.
you're more likely to get a TV show out of that than you are if you walked in raw or just happened to give the book to the right person. I don't know, which is crazy tough. It's like trying to hit a hole in one. And so I knew that I could package everything up with my work. I would
Mm.
like to show run
Mm.
Wells when the TV show comes out. I've got this is also new. I'm working on a collection of short stories, which will have Stifle of Elephants 2 as a novella in the collection.
Mhm.
And that it's like 9 stories. I'm gonna do that indie
Mhm.
opposed to Big Five intentionally. And
Through
every
another.
single one of those pieces well, I'm gonna use an indie publisher, but another will take the on the rights of each of the individual stories.
I love that. Is
And
it
so
too early
each
to ask
story
if you found your publisher already?
I've got one that I'm talking to,
I love
but
it.
I
We can
haven't
talk
I haven't
offline.
finalized anything.
I geek out over this stuff, so I'm like, "Who is it?" And you're in London, so there's a really the legacy of Black indie publishers in London. I mean, we have it here
Yes.
too in the States. Of course, we have Paul Coates and, the Wades and, so many others, but there've been a lot more that I've seen Black successful indie publishers in the
Yeah. This is the thing is I like I do feel I look at Simon& Schuster and I feel loyalty, but the the idea that you can expand out and move and shake, Akwuke Emeze did that with their stuff. Freshwater and then Death of Vivek OJ was Big
Mhm,
Five, and then I think it's Dear Centurion, I think is how you pronounce it, and Bite and all these other books were coming from every angle, and
mhm.
they end up publishing I think 7 novels in 4 years
Wow.
all because of the diversity, because publishing moves too slow.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this isn't about disloyalty. It's about like expanding.
Mhm,
And so the collection of shorts will have each individual story will have its own rights.
mm,
And then I've written a original screenplay that I'm planning to hopefully get in with Lena and her team at Film and Grad. And it's a love story. It's not anything crazy. It's just a love story. And then I've got right behind me to come, I'm working on a 3-book series, that's like, tutors, but for the African continent. So all of the,
mm,
pre-colonized kings and queens and everyone says this, but it never turns out the way it's like Game of Thrones for Africa. It's not really that. It's like trying to fill in the gaps of the stories that we've lost and
mhm.
do it at a really high level. And that series is going to be big. I mean, it's 3 big giant novels. And
Yeah.
I'm like, each one of those I'll be able to do on spec, hopefully as
Mhm.
adaptations, even before the novels are done. And
Yeah.
so that alone is a lot of stuff.
Mhm,
And at the same time, I'm like, yeah, if this works and I can finalize, which I'm working on now, finalizing the process for it. So when I do bring someone in, we can curate that process for their work specifically. Then
mhm.
I think I'll open the doors and go, we're inviting IP in
Yeah.
and helping to develop it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're the proof of concept and you already have made so much success. So I think it's smart to keep using your own IP and to continue to flesh out the idea. So at the time when you are ready to open doors, I mean, the company is going to be in a completely different standing.
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
so I think
Indeed.
that it's great. I know that we are coming up on time, but Sibo, this conversation was incredible. Thank you so much for
Of
sharing
course. Of
your
course.
time with us. I am so inspired and love all of the work that you are doing in the space. I think that so many authors can learn from you. As far as how to not let this story just stop in the physical book and how to bring it to life many other different ways. I also want to congratulate you and acknowledge your work on working with so many micro influencers and book clubs. Like I'm looking and I'm like, I don't know how this dude is not tired because it seems like you've done hundreds of interviews and book clubs and all of the things. But I think that that grassroots approach is why your novel is so successful today is you're connecting directly to the people. So congratulations on all you've accomplished. I'm so excited to see what's to come
Thank
and
you.
thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, much love, much love.